Hi there and welcome to my channel. In this video I will be reviewing a new green watercolor travel set from Escoda, and I'll show you all the wonderful things you can paint with these brushes. Green is one of these 4 amazing new travel sets from Escoda, each containing carefully curated collection of high-performing, cruelty-free sable and squirrel synthetic alternatives. So let's jump right in. This Escoda Green set we're testing today has some very exciting new brush shapes that open up a whole new set of possibilities in terms of the results you can get on paper. And as always, I'll do some standard performance tests and we'll show you exactly what the brush strokes look like in real painting so you can get a good idea of why this could be a nice addition to your set of art supplies, whether you're like painting landscapes or portraits or do decorative work. My name is Anna, and if you're new here, make sure you hit that subscribe button, and all the links to videos and products I mentioned here are in the description below. Escoda brushes really take the whole experience with synthetic brushes to the next level in terms of the quality and performance. Escoda is a family business from a beautiful small town just outside of Barcelona, and they produce close to 1 million brushes every year, each arranged by hand in their factory. They've done an amazing job coming up with cruelty-free, high-performing, affordable alternatives to real animal fur. These sets are also super convenient if you like to take your art supplies on the road or do plein air or urban sketching. Each set fits into your pocket. You can see when I take out the green case out of the box, it's so small it's hard to believe it's hosting 3 fairly large brushes inside. It's a very smart design where the case is constructed into parts so you can open it and put the brush end inside the handle so it feels like a regular brush, and the whole set is super small and compact. And each set has a custom selection of brushes to suit different artistic styles. So this green set is quite different from the other 3 sets that I'm reviewing in terms of the brush shapes, and so it gives you an opportunity to do all sorts of special techniques and brush strokes, which I will show you in just a minute. So if you're already enjoying using different brush types, or if you want to try and add some new effects in your landscape or portrait work, or especially if you do a lot of decorative work, which is what I do, in addition to traditional watercolor, you will love this set. Let's take a closer look at these 3 brushes. So the first one is a large round pointed Barroco in size 16. Barroco series are made with gold tori synthetic, which is one of the most popular synthetic hairs for painting, and I like that Escoda includes a larger round brush in each set because you really need a good round brush to do any kind of background work, and Barroco does a very good job at that, as you will see in a minute. Next we have a flat or bright Prado brush, so you can do those flat strokes, and it's made with one of the most valued synthetics because of its similarity to sable hair. It looks like sable, but it also does a very good job imitating the spring and absorption of liquids, and thanks to this combination of 3 different diameters and 3 different lengths of fibers that Escoda masters use, the brush strokes you get are pretty much the same as you would get with a natural sable. And finally, we have an Ultimo in size 4, and this for me is the most exciting one because I love soft, long brushes and rigger brushes. So this Ultimo is much longer than your regular round brush, almost a rigger. I suppose I could call it a rigger. But the point is you can do super long, accurate lines, and it's an almost perfect imitation of squirrel hair because of its exceptional softness and capacity to retain liquid. It's actually expected to pretty much replace the squirrel hair in the future, and you can do amazing things with this brush. You'll see in just a second. So let's put the brushes to the test in terms of the performance. Barroco, as I mentioned, will do a good job, and you can see it has pretty good liquid retention, really good for synthetic sable. What you will notice compared to other synthetics is that Barroco series has more spring. So for me, it makes it really good for acrylics and gouache, but it does a good job at watercolor as well. And the reason why they included it in this set, I think, is that it's flexible, round brush, and it has a good point, so you can work with one number of brush, like this large one, to finish an entire painting, and that allows Escoda to add 2 other brushes to the set with different shapes, very different shapes, to give you some interesting choices and more flexibility if you're taking this set on the road. So the next one is Prado, a flat brush, and it holds a decent amount of water for a flat brush. It's not really meant for large washes. The key advantage here is having the ability to produce this particular type of stroke, this flat stroke. And I actually use it for acrylic and gouache a lot, which is where that spring comes in handy. And you can also use the edge to do different things like straight lines. I love it for lifting watercolor paint, and I'll show you some of the things that you can do with it in just a second. Ultimo long round, one word, amazing. I love this brush so much. If you've used this type of longer brush before, you know that the length of the hair is actually what provides a cushion against your hand shaking when you do really long strokes. So it kind of absorbs the movement of your hand and prevents the movement from being reflected in the stroke. So you get a really accurate, beautiful long lines. And it's like my secret weapon when I have to do super long things like grass or tree branches or hair. It's like suddenly I have a super steady hand and I can just do these things so easily, like I'm not even holding my breath. So I'm getting excited to show you some actual examples. And why don't we start with this Ultimo, because it's really something special, and this green set is the only one that contains an Ultimo in this configuration. The special thing about this type of long round brush, or almost like a rigger brush, is that it allows you to do super long strokes with great accuracy. This brush really excels at landscape painting where you have to do a lot of tree branches, like especially winter landscapes without the foliage. It's so good. You can use it to create beautiful water effects, like I'm doing here with subtle wave ripples or long strands of grass. It's really easy to do with this brush. And of course, naturally, it would be great for painting long hair strands. After you put down the first layers and define your light and shadow areas, you can bring this longer brush in and take your work to the next level by adding these delicate details. I do like it for larger botanicals where I have to do uniform thin strokes like I'm doing here on this orchid, and even calligraphy. And of course, given how easy it is to do longer strokes, this kind of brush is absolutely perfect for all kinds of decorative work. Here you can see me using it with acrylic paint and gouache paint, creating really nice thin details like stems and all sorts of decorative strokes. Let's go back to our Barroco. Here I'm using it with my watercolor sketchbook. It's just a quick little sketch of the sky and some grass, just as I would do if I was outside in the summertime and had to take my travel set with me. Now this makes me a little sad because it's like -15 in Toronto right now and I really miss summer, but as you can see, size 16, really big brush, but holding the point nicely so I can work even in my small sketchbook. Here's more complicated strokes on a larger landscape and much thicker cold pressed paper. So still quite small paper size for landscape. You can go much bigger with this brush, of course, and you can definitely do an entire painting with just one brush, like the description says, because the tip allows you to get into smaller grooves and do those details. For my small and very detailed botanicals, obviously it wouldn't be precise enough, but we have other brushes for that. And you can also have some fun with this brush if you like to do loose ink paintings, but prefer a large brush with more spring. This will do a good job. I must admit that for larger brushes, I do prefer Versatile series from Escoda because it's a bit softer. And you can find the Versatile and larger size in Escoda Black Travel Set, but this Barroco is very good. Now, because it has so much spring, I actually prefer to use Barroco with my gouache and acrylics, so I use it a lot in my folk art, as you can see here. And here's another example where I'm using a large Barroco to paint cat fur and some leaves. so you can see that it's pretty good for those larger wet on wet washes, but it also does a good job when I do smaller areas wet on dry. Now let's talk about our bright or flat Prado brush. It will let you do all sorts of wide strokes and accurate short straight lines. So here on the landscape where I do have some rocky edges and horizon lines, it's quite useful because I want to have some edgy strokes and it's harder to do those with a round brush. I actually love to turn this brush around and use the edge to lift watercolor paint like I'm doing here in this landscape. So you can do it also for water ripples, and obviously for trees it works great. Pretty cool, right? Now I'm not big into cityscapes, but pretty clear that it would be so useful for urban sketching because you need a flat brush for any kind of rectangular shapes and edges. So again, if you're doing a lot of painting on the road and you want to take your brushes with you, this would be a good choice. But where this brush really shines for me is when I use acrylic and gouache to do my decorative paintings. So you can really load it up with paint and have great control when painting these organic shapes, and it keeps the shape and it does the job beautifully. So in summary, I would give Barroco 4 stars since it's a good synthetic brush, perhaps too stiff for my liking as a watercolor brush. I prefer to use it with gouache or acrylic, but that's absolutely my personal preference. I'm finicky because I tend to prefer softer, smaller brushes and also work a lot on miniatures. And I'm also probably a little spoiled because I get to work so much with versatile synthetic from Escoda, so it's hard to switch for me, but it's a really good brush. And of course, in terms of the price compared to real sable, it makes a big difference. Prado gets a 4.5. I really have nothing bad to say. It's a great synthetic flat brush. For me in this size, most useful as a decorative brush. I use it for the most part with gouache and acrylic. But I do believe it would be great for watercolor architecture painting and therefore a great choice for urban sketching because of the shape. And with a caveat that I haven't tried Prado flat brushes in larger sizes, so I'm curious to know if anyone did. Let me know in the comments below. Finally, Ultimo, 5 stars, absolutely phenomenal. Improves your line accuracy, and I would definitely recommend it, getting a long Ultimo if you haven't tried it, because you can do so many things with it. And overall, this green set really impressed me, particularly because of the variety of brush shapes. I would say if you love to paint outside and do a lot of landscapes specifically, this one will probably be on top of my list. Now, this video is meant to give you detailed information, but only from a perspective of one artist with a particular style, so I encourage you to do more research on your own for balance. And these brushes are available in North America through Speedball Art Supplies or jacksonsart.com. You can also purchase them on Amazon or directly from Escoda website, depending on where you live. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found this review useful, and I'll be back next week with more watercolor tutorials and my review of the last Escoda Travel Set, the black set, which also contains some really fun new brush shapes. Have a lovely week, and I'll see you soon.